Hello YouTube vintage radio collectors. Here's one you don't see every day, and I really mean it. This Toshiba 1968, and I actually found a free schematic excerpt from service manual here. This is a 1 year only radio, model 15L-822F, 4 bands. And this thing is absolutely beautifully made. I don't know how I can say it. Built on a metal chassis, germanium transistors, a really nice cabinet, real wood on the sides, real wood under the handle, antennas in really nice shape. It was one of these filthy dirty radios, part of a collection. It was more yellow than black or chrome. It took a really good cleaning. You might ask how I do that. I get some generic disinfecting wipes. Those usually dissolve things. The grill itself had a couple dents, which I was able to take the grill off, roll it out a bit. Usually use like a D-cell battery or something like that. Roll it out, and then I painted it, masked it all off and painted it. This cleaned up nice, that cleaned up nice. Let me show you, it actually has a nice 5 1/4 inch speaker for good tone. Talk about the chassis. So it was the funniest thing, I had it on the bench and it was dead. I mean nothing. I did a little probing around and it's just like, oh, that's the way it's going to be. Well, it is a complicated radio. This thing's a bit top heavy. So I had it on the bench, the chassis was still in. I moved a couple things around and it fell face forward and went bonk on this table. And so I set it back up, turned it on, and it played. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. So things are stranger. What I think it actually was the power switch was stuck inside here. So I gave it controls a lube, everything a nice lube. And I was able to get some AM, FM unit, a bit of shortwave out of it. It wasn't good, it was garbly. I'm just going to show you the rear of this. Has a really nice dial with a tuning strength meter. It had 2 bulbs made of unobtainium. I couldn't source these anywhere. Put 2 high intensity LEDs in there and a dropping resistor because it's a DC circuit with 9 volts. Really easy to do. And like I say, here's your word for the day, garbly. My grandfather invented this word. I had an old Philco tube radio I was playing with, and he was hanging around, you know, like he was a craftsman, a woodworker, and he would, you know, like say, oh, that's beautiful oak or whatever, and then I would get the chassis working. I used to pick these up, and this radio was sort of, and he said, that radio is garbly, I don't like it. Well, it had leaky capacitors. And that was the same thing with this one. A lot of these Rubicons, there were 2 that had been replaced actually with these Marcon brand caps. That one there, that was actually the capacitor between the output stage and the speaker. So there's a few more caps over here. They were really off value, many of them were oozing. But this thing is so hard to work on. I have to admit, it is one of the hardest to work on I've done in a long time. This thing was like brain surgery. Okay? Look at this board. Hopefully you can see this over here. That is the power amp, the audio section. The caps I put in are smaller than the originals. Everything was up against everything else, and there was a layer of glue on top of it. Heat, fine tools. It was like extracting teeth, getting these out, but I replaced them. Different boards here. This is the FMIF. The AM is over here. This is the tuning board here. Up here are the selectors. So they made things, they were way overbuilt in this era. That was just, solid state was fairly new in 68. Well, it'd been around for a decade or so, but a radio that performed like this, and these really work well. In fact, more modern radios just aren't as good. And the one thing I think it's all about, the germanium transistors. Germanium transistors have their faults. One of them is tin whiskers. And a lot of them are unobtainium. But they have a very low turn-on voltage, which is good in RF applications. Just I've noticed a lot of things like some of the old transoceanics, the early solid state ones, just have, it'd be a 7 transistor chassis, and you just go, I can't believe how many stations this thing pulls in. And that's part of it. They have a lot of gain and a low turn on. The audio section is actually really good. It's push-pull with an audio transformer and a coupling cap. To fill, there's no DC getting through in that. One thing I built for it, I picked this up for $6 yesterday, a 9-volt power transformer. So this has a tray for 6 D cells. The radio already weighs about 8 pounds. You put 6 D cells in it, it's a really heavy radio. So they never had provision for a DC adapter. So I'm going to put an extra jack discreetly on this board, so you can use the DC adapter. Anyway, I'm going to get it together and maybe we can do a little video. I am catching up on some of this stuff. Some of it's been sitting here for a long time and people get anxious, but I am catching up on this stuff, so thanks for watching and listening.